Is this better? Can you guys hear me? Yeah? Can everyone hear me? I can't tell the difference.
No, I don't know if the speaker.
Huh?
I don't know if the speaker's on.
Oh, this is just for the camera.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Can you guys hear me speaking regularly? Okay, great. I just have to remember I'm attached to this. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. It's really lovely to be here with you all. Obviously, I'm not Eve or Chandra. My name is Aiko, and I'm just subbing. And I think it would be really lovely to maybe hear from you all, if you're willing, to share your name and maybe an emotion that you're bringing in this moment. So I can start off. My name is Aiko, and feeling excited and a little bit nervous.
I'm Karen, and I'm feeling curious and a little tired.
Thanks, Evan.
I had a good day today, so I'm pretty good.
Oh,
Usually I'm anxious, and I'm happy to be here.
great, thanks.
I'm Mike, and I'm excited and curious.
Cool.
Happy, grateful that I'm here.
I'm curious, and I'm tired, and grateful.
Thanks.
Jim? Stress.
Thanks.
I'm Audrey, and I'm also grateful to be here.
Thanks, Audrey.
I'm Brendan. I'm excited. Just that.
Cool.
This.
Hmm.
I'm Noam, and I am feeling fairly calm and also curious.
Oh, thanks, Noam. Welcome. We're just going around and saying our name and what we're feeling in this moment. Pass is okay. Yeah. Yeah. So, I'm a high school teacher, and I teach mindfulness in a classroom. And so it's very different than a Dharma talk. The way tonight will unfold, we'll sit for 20, 30 minutes. We'll see how it goes. And then we'll have some time for debrief and working in dyads. And then usually I teach a science classroom, so the way I like to teach my students is guiding them through their own experiments so they can uncover different aspects of awareness for themselves. And then to build Sangha, we'll have some paired activities and some shares. If at any point you feel uncomfortable about the format, I invite you to listen and to honor your heart. And it's totally okay to observe, that's also participation, or to sit out and take care of yourself, okay? It's really in the spirit of trying to build community and give us an opportunity to learn together and get to know each other. So, without making meditation another doing, just letting yourself land into the space and just start noticing the room that you're in, the people you're with, sounds of the streets. And allow your nervous system to settle on its own. And if it feels comfortable, you can close your eyes. Or if you'd like, you can keep it open. But again, really starting to listen and honor what it is that supports your well-being. If it's helpful, you can start with a few slow, long breaths. Filling the body with oxygen, nourishing and releasing any worry. Using the breath to clear out the system. Letting go of any responsibility you might have brought with you. And just enjoying having some space and some time. Allowing the muscles of the face to relax. Loosening the jaw. You can experiment with dropping the chin forward a little bit. To open up some of the space in the back of the neck. Dropping the shoulders. Opening up the chest and allowing the heart to come forward. And you can experiment with just small adjustments or movement to find out what it is that the body's wanting. Connecting with the movement of breathing. Feeling the muscles between the ribs stretching. The collarbones rising. Really allowing yourself to land in sensation. Feeling the weight of the body distributed on the legs. The hands touching. Soles of the feet. Allow the center of gravity of your awareness to drop out of the head and into the body. Like thick honey pouring down. Fully occupying this body. Letting your attention meet each sensation as it arises. And allowing the boundaries between the sensations dissolve. So that you are becoming one unified sensory field. And noticing the impact of sound on the sensory field. And how the body responds. Where do you hear the sounds in your body? And if you find yourself being pulled away by thoughts, it's not a problem. You can notice the impact of thoughts on your body and your sensory field. If you find yourself leaving the body, just come back to sensation and land where it's obvious. Allow your attention to become completely absorbed by the felt sense of that sensation. Tasting it. Making full contact with each moment with the sensory field. We're just being with. Just receiving each experience. Like you would receive warm sunshine on the skin on a cold day. Let yourself make delicious contact with what's happening. With all of it. And noticing as you return to sensations, if there's any pleasantness available. And if so, really allow yourself to sink into that. Let your being be bathed by your own awareness. Connecting with this organism intimately, by just being with each of the sensations. This organism that has been with you since the beginning of time. Cell by cell, enveloped your consciousness as you came into existence. Who knows you more intimately than anything else. And who has served you with impeccable integrity. And let yourself come back home to this organism. Allow yourself to be held by this organism. May this body be a place of refuge. So allowing the body to move however it wants to right now. And just following it, honoring it. And seeing if you can maintain a thread of connection with any sensation that is most obvious to you. And staying grounded in the body. How was that? I'm having some difficulties coming out. I feel very dense right now. And I'm curious, always curious, what other people's experience is like. So maybe as a way to bring some more energy into the room, if you're willing to meet someone new, maybe someone you don't know, and introduce yourself, and maybe we can take 5 minutes of sharing out observations with a partner, if that feels okay. And if you're feeling really yummy and you don't want to interact with anyone, it's totally fine to be like, I'm being with me right now. Yeah? So, I'm really dying to hear some of what you guys are saying. And so, if you're comfortable, would love to hear some feedback about what that particular meditation was like, how it landed, any observations about your own experience.
When you said to let our bodies self-regulate,
Mm,
that was I don't know if I've ever thought of it that way. Like just, oh, right, we're calming up the waters,
mm-hmm.
doing things.
Mm.
And my heart was going quite fast and a little, like I said, this around that. And so it was interesting not to fix it.
Yeah,
It's still kind of there underneath it.
just being. Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. Great, thanks. Any other observations?
Oh, when I really go to my thoughts, if I could really enjoy the sensations
Yeah.
in my body and already relief.
Uh-huh. So being with sensation was relieving. Yeah.
That's very sweet and soft and
Yeah.
healing.
Healing? Mm-hmm. That sounds great. Any other observations?
I liked what you said, or it resonated with me when you said, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was something about where did I hear the sound in my body?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, I don't think I had heard that before, or if I did, I don't remember. So that was a novel idea of, yeah, where am I, like, where does that, what part of me does that enliven?
Mm-hmm.
Part of my body does hearing a sound enliven?
And I'm just really curious, were you able to hear it in different parts of the body?
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
That was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, how about that?
Did anyone else hear anything in your body? Yeah? This is a real new discovery for me. And I've been trying to convey it to other people. So I'll give an example of hearing with your body. Did you just hear that? Where did you feel it in your body? Right, there's an impact. We have this somatic, emotional field, for lack of better words. I don't have the words to describe this sensory field that comes into contact with all of our experiences. And because we have not trained our somatic emotional awareness, because we've spent most of our lifetime institutionalized and trained to develop our cognitive awareness, the subtleties of that flavor that you get, so it's more than just a physical sensation, right? There's a flavor to it. And I, again, the words, I can't really describe exactly what it is, but there is something else that is picking up information and also responding. That's so beyond our cognitive. And I'm not in any way saying that cognitive is bad or the mind is bad. It's an incredible tool for our executive functionings and for performing simple tasks. But we have this whole other possibility for awareness that has gone dormant. And oftentimes the example I give is, think of a small child, like pre-verbal, 1, 2 years old. And how do they encounter their experience, right? So if a child sees this bowl, right, they're going to come into contact with the object with their senses, right? With touch, maybe with taste, right? Fully immersed in it and playing with it to see what the effects are, right? They're not thinking about it. They're not conceptualizing it. Whereas us as an adult, it's like, oh yeah, it's a brass bowl, right? It's a completely different way to come into contact with experience. And that contact that they use, which is using the entirety of their system, the somatic awareness through the sensory system, through taste, through smell, sight, hearing, and emotional, is enough for them to take in what's happening and to be able to construct their sense of reality based on that. And we have that. We do as animals. I've been studying my mother's cat lately, because I've had to cat sit for her. And I like the cat because the cat doesn't talk. And I like the cat because the cat, for the most part, doesn't want attention, right? And the cat is just a cat. You can't really expect much. It's a cat. It's an uncomplicated relationship. And I started to follow her around and watch her. And it was fascinating to me how she moved about the day. So she would wake up, and when she would wake up, she would do this like yawn, like her whole tongue would flop out, And then there was this kind of delicious stretching, And then she'd be kind of half awake, and she'd kind of step out, and I would open the door, because I know she loves being outside, and she wants to check her territory and see who's been there. And I could see her choice points, where she would pause, and she would feel the cold air and sense it out and not really be sure, and kind of come back and feel the warmth, look at me, and then something would move out in the backyard and her attention would be there, and then curiosity would arise and she would follow, right? Which is very different than how I do things, where I generally have a plan about what's going to happen. And even if I'm just sitting around and I'm not doing anything, I'll contrive some kind of explanation for what's happening, or there's always this chronic directing of my experience, right? It's not just a receiving. It's not just a being with. There's this subtle doing that's always there. And so I think I digressed, but coming back to the way the cat was interacting with the environment, I decided to run an experiment and try that for the weekend. And it was delicious to actually listen to what the body wanted and to just follow. And I think I overheard in one of the dyads the word permissiveness. There is something incredibly healing about just allowing, right? Put down the doing and just allowing, just listening, just following, which is very different how we do things, right? We're very much in the cognitive. And so if you think about that small child and how they come into the world, right? They come completely open, right? They have their somatic awareness, they have their emotional awareness, and cognitive that will be developed later. And what happens as that child goes through education and comes into our conceptual world, that somatic and emotional awareness starts to get ignored, and we're going to just develop this. And if anything, there's somewhat of a stigma with the somatic or the emotional, right? This is what is valued in the society that we're in. And so, to me, mindfulness is really about being able to bring back the complete possibility for awareness that I have. And to be able to meet each moment directly with that awareness. Just listening. I'm curious if anyone experienced pleasure in letting yourself land in just sensation. Anyone sense that at all? Even if it was like a subtle, not like a, fireworks pleasure, but like a subtle pleasantness, maybe peace, right? There is a feedback that the body gives when we are attuned with it, right? When we are fully engaged with what's happening, the body gives us feedback by offering us states of well-being. And this can be a great barometer to tell us when we are attuned with the body or not, right? When you're in that state of deep embodiment and presence, you'll sense the taste of that peace, of that pleasantness. The other thing that I wanted to share about this experience, for me at least, is this just hit home maybe about a month ago. Because up until now, I have been meditating by trying to focus on the breath. And while I think that there's incredible value in doing that, I'm a type A person, and I'm a perfectionist, and I'm generally pretty good at anything I set myself to do, which means that meditation practice has been really, really challenging when I set a very narrow objective of doing. And I'm using my own conditioning to be doing, to be trying to be. Like, I'm not sure if you see the contradiction in that. I am trying to be, right? It doesn't work. But there was something really wonderful about watching the cat, letting herself really enjoy the sensations, or when she would come over and want to be pet, like really receiving, right? Just like receiving and allowing, that I thought that I would try that in my meditation practice. And it's been really transformative. And that's one of the things I wanted to share, because who knows, maybe it might resonate for some people. So I wanted to do an activity because oftentimes it's difficult to sense the body when we're just sitting still. And so I also wanted to share, this is a little embarrassing, this is a practice that I do at home before meditating. And I call it the dancing seaweed. And no, I'm not going to ask you to dance, but that's what it looks like when you're in my living room and the whole front wall is glass, which means everyone walking the street, if they're up at 5 in the morning, will see me doing this. And I'll demonstrate it to you, and then you can choose whether you want to try this or not. And so in the morning, one of the first things that I do when I wake up is I find a place in the living room and I allow myself to descend in the body. And standing's really nice because you can really feel the bottoms of your feet. And actually, if you guys are okay with this, do you want to do this together so you can, versus just cognitively hearing me? Here's what we can do. There's a lot of space here. And for people to feel totally comfortable, maybe we can face the wall, and I'll just guide us auditorily, if that's okay. You can face the other way, but it's just so people feel privacy, like nobody's watching them, and you have full permission to move however you want. So if you're okay with it, find your own space in the room. You can look at the wall if you don't want to be looking at other people, but just find a place where you would feel comfortable. And I like to do this with my eyes closed because there's something that is sometimes really interfering about the visual field. And just standing noticing the weight on the soles of your feet. And you can see if your knees are locked, and notice what happens when you relax them a little bit. And you can play with very small adjustments, like just bringing the pelvis forward a little bit. And notice what that does to balance. And maybe bringing the shoulders back a little bit so that you're opening and letting the arms hang. And just like before, allowing awareness to descend into the body. And the key to this is very small, slow movements so that you can fully sense how the muscles and the body parts engage. So we can start simple, just shifting your weight slowly to one of your feet. And really connecting with the sensations of that. And then slowly coming back to neutral. And then letting your weight go to the other side. And again, dropping the attention purely in sensation. And you can come back to neutral. So embodiment is a great way to get concentrated. But the other condition is that of allowing or following. And so with this exercise, I will generally maybe prompt a little bit of a movement just to start feeling my body. And then I just follow what the body wants, letting any part move slowly, however it wants to move. Sometimes this is a slow stretch. Sometimes it's an arm moving. But really just following pleasure. And I realize that this is somewhat of a vulnerable setting. And you can try this at home. But even if it's small movements, noticing what the body wants. And what is the impact of offering that back to yourself? And if at any point it starts to feel contrived or that you're directing your experience, you can always pause and just wait until there's the impulse to move again. And if at all available to you, just letting yourself surrender to the sensation and any pleasantness. Like bathing in the warm sunshine on a cold day. So, staying connected to the body, just slowly making your way back, staying embodied, enjoying taking that step, feeling the soles of the feet rolling on the ground. The landing in the chair. So, I know I just had you guys all sit back down in your chair, and I'm going to request if you're willing to share your experience with somebody new. So maybe you're meeting someone new, and if you don't feel up to it and you want to be in your experience, that's fine. You could just put your head down and go inwards. I'm really curious as to what the observations are. Make sure you're listening to yourself and you're not doing something you don't want to do. Yeah, it's okay to not participate. I'm just curious, how many of you felt that it was easier to be present and embodied when you were moving versus sitting? How many of you felt that moving was actually more difficult to stay present? Yeah. So we're all different, right? We're all unique and we have different entryways. And so it's good to experiment to see if you find something that resonates, or maybe you find out something that really doesn't resonate, you know? So that it's an exploration. I'm really curious if anyone's willing to share anything they notice or they observe through the exercise. Yeah.
Find it challenging to go through an experience when we're trying to, we're not trying to purely experience sensation, whether we moving or sitting or that, and then especially try to talk about it, because it seems so like antithetical to like what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, yeah.
The idea is doing nothing or just being, right? Like
Yeah.
you're talking about you're trying to just be, right? Like
Yeah,
that
yeah.
doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So then the idea of like them trying to put words to it
Mm-hmm.
is completely fruitless
Mm-hmm.
in that sense to me. And then even in the sense of like not participating, but I'm still thinking about it.
Mm.
I'm trying to still form words and ideas about something that I'm like absolutely trying to not have words and ideas about, you know, and have that kind of just be. And I find that this is something different than my experience
Yeah.
in that, because it's like, now think about it, now talk about it, you know, like, well, the whole thing is not, like, think about it and talk about it, it's to kind of experience it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't mean that to be, challenging or anything like that, it's just, it's my opinion.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. And I love that perspective. There's a lot of awareness in what you're saying. Like noticing how disjointed the being with and at the same time being in this contrived exercise of moving and, then having to share out. Yeah, I get it and I appreciate that feedback. Thanks. Any other observations? Yeah.
I was just noticing I'm connecting with the experience of being while acting,
Mm-hmm.
being and doing. Like even talking right now, I feel that I'm connecting to my body.
Mm.
So I have to see being reminded of that, because in my experience that it doesn't have to be a disconnect.
Mm-hmm.
And when I can almost like let being speak,
Mm-hmm.
it can happen. Like it's happening right now. I'm thinking about what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And many times I forget about that. And
Yeah.
I can go into my head and then I suffer.
Uh-huh.
And when I can drop back into almost like the point of rest is the awareness,
Mm-hmm.
and the point of rest is not control.
Yeah.
So I was just connecting with that. And also I wanted to say that I'm feeling especially sensitive today and kind of like, I don't know, sad and angry, and I'm not quite sure. So I was just noticing how sounds especially bother me.
Mm.
So I became more aware of that. It's like, oh, yeah. But maybe with more space, there can be more kindness in
Mm.
these experiences.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for that share. It makes me think of that ultimately, for myself at least, I want to feel like I can be while I'm doing the dishes, while I'm teaching a meditation class, while I'm in traffic. That hopefully with the practice, we can bring this outside of the cushion or outside of conditions having to be in a particular way, that there's more ease with coming into the world. And I think that that's just something that naturally happens when we bring awareness to what's happening. When we bring awareness to the discomfort, when we bring awareness to the I don't want this, or I don't like this, or why is this happening? There's something soothing that just naturally happens when we're able to witness fully our experience. And when I mean fully, I mean witness it with the contraction and the pain of the suffering, with the feeling tone of unpleasant. And so I love your share because it just reminded me of that there is a possibility. And with the being, I find that oftentimes we need to experience it to have a reference point. Ah, this is what it feels like, right? So that we're building somewhat of a map of, or not a map, but a point of reference that we can land on. And so for me, the movement is really helpful because there is something about fluidly, it's almost, I call it a dance because I'm just following. There's no rhythm or there's no music, but I don't know what's going to happen. It's a spontaneous, like I'm not thinking, I'm just really letting the body do its thing. And so that works for me. But that's not everyone's strong point. For some people, maybe it's windsurfing. Maybe for some people, it's being with their cat, whatever that is. But the point is to start to notice, where does that happen for you, right? What is your natural entry point? And really allow your system to absorb what that is so that you can build a reference and start to notice where it happens more and more, and you can orient towards that. And it's helpful to know what really doesn't work also, right? And really honor that. It's just like, no. Because if you end up doing something that doesn't feel right, in a sense it's a self-betrayal, right? And that doesn't work either. And so the idea is we're just experimenting here and we're just collecting data. And each one of us has a unique configuration. And with just bringing attention, not just to the experience itself, but the impact it has on our system, we can build our own source of wisdom so that we're not necessarily relying on an external source, like a workshop or a book. Like those are helpful, but ultimately what we really want to do is restore the relationship, repair the relationship with ourselves. Because nobody is going to know better than us what works and what doesn't, what brings the feeling of homecoming, what brings the sense of unity, right? That's something that we cultivate awareness so that we can start to find out for ourselves and really listen and honor that. I think the key for me has been permissiveness to really understand this practice, is just be allowed to experiment in any way or form, even if it breaks traditional meditation sitting practice of not moving. Well, what happens if I do move my neck because it's really painful, right? Is that indulgence or is that wisdom? Try it out and see how you feel. Do you feel more present? Do you feel more aligned? Or do you feel still fidgety? The impact will be your answer, right? So that we can use our somatic, emotional, whatever you want to call it, field as a way, as a compass to be able to identify when are we aligned and when are we on track and when have we strayed off the path. You'll feel it, right? You know the impact. And so I wanted to try one more activity. And again, you don't have to participate. And I'll describe it first, okay? And this one is with the idea of starting to get a sense of this somatic emotional field, whatever you want to call it, field that we have, this perceptive field that we have. And so this will be done with a partner as well. And the two people will be standing apart from each other, like, I don't know, like the distance from the wall over there to maybe the edge of this rug. And one person will simply be walking towards the other slowly, like really slowly. And walker, you're paying attention to the person that's giving you permission to approach. Person that's in charge, you're giving hand signals to let your partner know what you want. And so they'll start walking, and if you want them to stop, stop. Right? And we're going to do this all nonverbal, so we can really sense what's going on with the body. So this is stop. This is you can come, you know, and you can kind of modulate that, or this is back up, right? So it's okay if you don't want them to keep, like if they've crossed a boundary, tell them to back up, right? And we're going to do this again very slowly because your boundaries might change. You can even use this to play around with boundary where you sense a boundary and you let them violate your boundary and notice what happens to your body. Notice what happens to the somatic emotional field. How does your body say no? And then you can have them back up. You know, you can play around with this. What's a yes? What does a yes feel like in the body? What does a no feel like? Okay. And then what we'll do is we'll switch roles, and all of this will be done non-verbally. And same thing. The person that's giving permission, you're also tracking what's happening in your body as you're giving the hand signals. Person that's walking, you're tracking their somatic reaction to you. Because sometimes we're not aware of what our boundaries are. But the observer on the outside, who's not busy doing hand signals, might be able to notice that maybe the breathing pattern has changed. Maybe there's a change in posture, right? Any kind of signal. And so you can use this also as a way to check in with yourself, but also really noticing what their field is telling you. Because we have mirror neurons, which allow us to feel sometimes the experience of another. Right? So you can use your own sensory experience to not just modulate your own experience, but understand what's happening with someone else. Any questions about that? Okay, so if you want to try, and it's okay for you to opt out, you can just stay here and you can go inwards and be. But if you want to try, maybe move to outside of the chair area and pick a partner and a spot and give it a try. Might be pretty interesting what you discover. And just find a space where you're not going to be running into someone else. You know, there's some space over where the bike is over there. People need space. Does anyone need a partner? Everyone partnered up? And so you can decide between, would you two mind coming maybe over here, and maybe we can get, if anybody else is feeling tight, you can use that space or go into the hallway out there. Just whatever's comfortable. Don't feel like you have to move if you don't want to. And generally, the more space that you have in between each other, the more you can start experiencing the effects of this. And the key is to go slow. All right, so you can decide who's going first and try it out, see what happens. And we want to walk slowly. You're really noticing the impact. And it's totally okay to stop at any point and just get inwards and reground. And if you haven't switched roles yet, maybe starting to transition over. And if you have and you want to play with boundaries, feel free to experiment with your partner. And maybe just taking a last minute to wrap it up. And if you feel like debriefing with your partner, you totally can, because you just had a moment there. And if you don't want to, you don't have to either. Just offer you a little bit of space for that. Or for the rest of us, if you just want to be, you can just be. It could be a win-win for everyone. For those of you that went through the experiment, how many felt your field? Raise your hand, I'm just curious. You able to feel it? Yeah? Were you able to feel what a no felt like?
Yeah.
What does a no feel like? I'm just curious, because everyone has a different, like, where do you feel it, or how does it feel?
Good. I mean, it's just like powerful. It's like permission to, like you were using the word permission. But yeah, it's just so simple, but so, I was just like, oh, I wish I had learned this at 8. I mean, every 8-year-old girl should know
Yeah,
how
yeah.
to do that.
Uh-huh.
And 8-year-old boy, you know.
Uh-huh.
I mean,
Yeah.
but yeah, and younger probably.
Mm.
That's where, I mean, it's such power, and I just love, I mean, I don't know if power is the word, but just, it was just so gentle to do it together. So it was
Mm.
like power and gentle. It's like, oh, it doesn't have to be anything.
Yeah.
There's nothing personal about it.
Yeah.
This is what I need right now.
Yeah. So you enjoyed the person that was setting the boundaries.
In my setting of boundaries,
Yeah.
I enjoy it.
Yeah.
And, you know, but that was the more powerful experience for me.
Great. I'm glad you got something out of it. Yeah.
I was surprised to notice. So I thought first that I would have feelings only when I allows or no
Mm-hmm.
the other person, but I was aware of more feelings when I was on the other side. So being allowed or not.
Oh, so as the person walking, is that what you're talking about? Is,
When I was walking and
Yeah.
the other person told me to stop or to come, I was aware of more thoughts and feelings.
uh-huh.
And I noticed a lot of relation with my own history.
Sure. Yeah. And you were able to feel that in the body somehow. I mean, I say the body, but it feels like it's a combination of everything, right? Yeah. Cool. So a lot to play with and explore, as I said, is, it's the facets of awareness that become available when we start opening ourselves up to, and the capacity for healing, to be able to bring these aspects of ourselves that have become so compartmentalized or dormant, and to allow them to integrate into our day-to-day lives and really reconnect and restore the trust in the body and in the sensory field can be really powerful. So, yeah.
Is there like a third part to the exercise?
Mm.
I felt like so when the person came towards me,
Mm-hmm.
so there was one way of seeing things, and then when I came towards her was another way. But then, is there a time or where it can be a dance between
Yes.
the two of us?
Yes. Yes.
I felt that part. It's like I wanted to go there.
Yeah,
I don't really
yeah.
feel that missing.
So there is this event called Underbelly that used to be hosted here that's all about relational practice. And so it's kind of dance because you're moving, and there's a moment where you can choose to make contact with another person. And it's very interesting because it's all nonverbal. And you can, just by the direction that they're moving, or if they pause and they look at you, right? They're, you know, then the impact on your body of like, oh, wow, okay, you know, like contact. Do I want this? Do I not? What does a yes feel like? What does a no? Maybe I'll take a step forward. Ooh, no, right? And so there are like different activities that you can do that focuses just on relational practice, which is a very rich field of practice because most of us move so fast, right? We're so fast to touch someone, or we're so fast to come into someone's space. And oftentimes, there's so many cues that you can get. I'm just curious, for those that did the exercise, did you notice when the other person was feeling uncomfortable? Were you able to pick up like physical cues on them, right? So all of this becomes really possible when we slow down and we start to pay attention. Did you have something you wanted to say?
I work with severe students on the autism spectrum.
Mm.
So a lot of nonverbal, that, and so much of what you talked about tonight is things that we discuss in our field. But a lot of it is like, we always talk about like behavior is communication.
Mm-hmm.
And so like the communication, and I think that applies to a lot of what what I've heard from you tonight about the communication with your body, with the communication with, you know, understanding, and then obviously in the last exercise would be communication with each other
Mm-hmm.
about what that is and
Mm-hmm.
what that feels like, and the subtleness of what that is, because I spend all day trying to figure out what a student wants because they can't say it the way that we can,
Yeah.
you know. So it's trying to figure out what exactly that, what they're communicating, what their wants and needs are, and all that. And I think that's really applicable to kind of what we're talking about.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. And what a beautiful way to meet your students, with that awareness of interest, like really engaged.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Can you imagine if we approached each other, like everyone in the world, with that same interest and wanting to understand where the other person is coming from? And
Yeah.
yeah, it's beautiful. Thanks. Thanks for the work you do. Okay, so maybe we can just drop in one last time for just a moment. Letting yourself return. Connecting with any sensations that arise. And just allowing the heart to soften a little. And offer yourself some appreciation for maybe meeting an edge today. May your body be a refuge. Thank you so much for your practice. Thank you.